God knows the future. He knew before Isaac's children, Jacob and Esau, were born, what characters they would each develop. He knew that Esau wouldn't obey him. God told Rebekah that she would have 2 children, and that the older one would serve the younger. He told her that each son would create a nation, and the younger son's country would be greater than the older one's. Isaac loved Esau more than Jacob, because Esau would hunt and bring him wild meat to eat. Rebekah preferred Jacob because he was calmer and made sure that his mum was happy. Rebekah told Jacob that Esau would serve him. Jacob thought that because he was the younger brother, the promise of being the father of God's people would go to Esau. One day Esau was very hungry, and Jacob offered him some food if Esau would give the promise of being the father of God's people to him. Esau didn't take the promise from God very seriously, so he agreed that Jacob could have it. Esau married 2 women who worshipped false gods. This caused Isaac and Rebekah a lot of stress. Even so, Isaac still loved Esau more than Jacob, and when Isaac thought that he was about to die, he asked Esau to bring him some meat, so that he could bless Esau with the promise God had given him. Esau did not tell his father that he had sold his birthright to Jacob. Rebekah remembered what God had told her, and knew that Esau had given the promise to Jacob. She persuaded Jacob to trick his dad by pretending to be Esau, so that he would get the blessing from his dad instead. Rebekah didn't think there was another way to do this, and he knew Isaac preferred Esau, so thought that he would definitely give the blessing to him. Rebekah and Jacob showed a lack of trust in God, just as Abraham had with the promised birth of Isaac. Jacob, trying to buy the promise and trick his dad, was wrong and unnecessary. God had told him he would be the father of his people, so he should have trusted God and allowed God to make sure it would happen. If Esau had got the blessing from Abraham, it would only have actually benefited him if he had a good relationship with God. If he loved and respected God, God would bless him. If he had no respect for God or his commandments, God would have rejected him. If Jacob hadn't got the blessing from Abraham, but he still loved God, God would have still blessed him as if Isaac had given him the blessing. Rebekah was bitterly sorry for what she had got Jacob to do. Because Jacob had done this, he had to run away because he thought that Esau would kill him. Rebekah never saw Jacob again. Jacob went to where his mum Rebekah had originally come from. He met his mum's brother, Laban, and wanted to marry his daughter, called Rachel. He made an agreement with Laban that in return for working for him for 7 years, he would get to marry Rachel. At the end of the 7 years, Laban wanted Jacob to work for him even longer, so he tricked Jacob into marrying his other daughter, called Leah, so that he would have to work another 7 years to marry Rachel. Jacob wanted to separate from Leah, but Laban told him that this would be very embarrassing for the family and not nice for Leah. So he agreed to marry both Leah and Rachel and work another 7 years for Laban. Although he married both women, he always loved Rachel much more than Leah. Laban was selfish, getting as much as he could out of Jacob for 20 years. Jacob wouldn't have stayed with Laban so long if he wasn't afraid of encountering Esau. However, he heard Laban's sons complaining that Jacob had taken a lot of Laban's wealth and that Laban attributed his success to Jacob and not to them. Laban became unhappy with Jacob and tried to pay him less money by tricking him. Jacob realized it was best for him to leave. Jacob was distressed because he didn't know where he was going to go. He prayed and God told him to go back to the area he grew up. Jacob told Leah and Rachel how Laban had been unfair to him. They were angry that Laban had used their money. Laban was angry when he found out that Jacob and his daughters had left. He went after them to bring them back, but God gave Laban a dream where he told Laban to let Jacob go. Laban still caught up with Jacob, and Jacob complained how he had mistreated them. Laban made an agreement that they wouldn't hurt each other. Laban said he cared for his daughters and grandchildren and didn't want Jacob to marry any more women. Jacob agreed to this. Jacob then went on his way back to his childhood home. He had a dream where he saw angels. He asked the angels in the dream to give a humble message to Esau to try and reconcile and make up with him. The angels went away and came back and said that Esau was coming to meet him with 400 men. This made Jacob terrified, and he split the group he was with into two, so that if Esau tries to kill him, he will only see and kill half of the group. Jacob prayed and remembered that God had told him to return home, that God would look after him if he went back and make him the father of many people. He trusted God with what he had told him, and he asked God to protect him from Esau.